McLaren decided to pull the trigger early with a surprising 2024 livery launch ahead of the unveiling of their actual McLaren MCL38 on February the 14th. Now, I wasn't expecting to make this video because usually launch season begins in early February, but it gives me a great opportunity to start this content early to talk about each of the teams. Throughout launch season, as the teams unveil their car or even just their livery, I'm going to try to make a dedicated video for each team talking about hopefully their brand new livery, but more importantly doing a small preview ahead of the brand new season. Luckily, during McLaren's launch, we also got to hear from team principal Andrea Stella and CEO Zak Brown, so we do have some new pieces of information that we can dig into, so let's jump in to our very first look at F1 in 2024. So, first up, let's quickly talk about the livery. Now, last year McLaren went absolutely crazy with more liveries than any other team across the season. They had their regular one, the Triple Crown livery, the Chrome livery, the Stealth livery, and then they also had their Art Car livery to end the season. And now, I love liveries and special liveries as much as the next person, but even for me last year was a little bit too much with so many that it kind of blurs all together now. The reason why McLaren had so many liveries was entirely down to sponsorship, with each livery having some kind of sponsor-related reason behind it, and no doubt that we're going to see more of that in 2024. The big change for this season is that the blue is now gone, which for me is just an instant improvement. What's quite interesting is that looking back at last season, this is less of an evolution of their regular 2023 livery and more of an evolution of their special Stealth livery. What I really like is that McLaren have not only ditched the blue, but have doubled down on adding even more papaya, which is exactly what I was hoping they would do. We've now got even more papaya on the engine cover, side pods, and most importantly the front wing, which trust me makes a huge difference when we'll see the cars on camera, especially head on. Since the whole weight-saving issue began in early 2022, I have hated this exposed carbon fiber revolution that all of the teams began to go through. I really think it had a detrimental effect on the liveries, and my favorite liveries have always been the ones that have been massively bright and the ones that just pop in pictures and videos. Especially now as a content creator, I can't tell you how much better it is to have brighter colored cars that just look better in videos and especially in YouTube thumbnails. It's something I never thought about as a fan, but trust me, as a content creator who spends more time than you can imagine on Photoshop looking at all of these cars, I am loving the brighter and more papaya McLaren. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this car is going to look out on track in videos and photos, or what special liveries McLaren is going to cook up, and definitely be prepared to see more of this McLaren livery in my thumbnails in 2024. So now let's talk about McLaren itself, and I think my main takeaway, as you can tell from the title of this video, is that apart from starting with an obvious deficit to Red Bull that carries over from last year, on paper, there is no excuses and there is no limitations that should stop McLaren from being able to challenge the likes of Mercedes and Ferrari. Andrea Stella has made it a point to say that his version of McLaren is going to be open and honest, and I think this is what I really like about him as a team principal already. Even going back to last year before the car even hit the track, the team openly admitted that the MCL60 was not starting in the right place, but they did outline why that was, where the major upgrades were going to arrive, and then proceeded to deliver on them throughout 2023. In the past, the likes of Zak Brown, ex-team principal Andrea Seidel, and ex-technical director James Key have all talked about McLaren's infrastructure as being a reason for their underperformance, but now Stella made a point to say that the brand new MCL38 was entirely developed using the brand new wind tunnel and using the new simulator. Also, the likes of Rob Marshall from Red Bull and David Sanchez from Ferrari have now joined full-time in 2024 alongside Peter Prodromou, making up McLaren's three-person technical leadership structure, and so all of this means that the people, tools, and infrastructure at McLaren is now absolutely on par with what's needed to win a world championship. The team's financial situation is also the strongest it's ever been. Zak Brown reported that the Formula 1 team made a profit last year for the first time in a long time, and in general, given that Zak Brown has a background in sponsorship, it's no surprise to see that McLaren are one of the strongest teams in that regard. In fact, it almost became a bit of a running joke between fans at just how many sponsors McLaren actually has when you look at their car and their website. And something that I've always found quite interesting is that Zak Brown never refers to them as sponsors, he always refers to them as partners, which I think along with their special liveries, just shows how much effort Zak is putting into making sure that the team is financially strong. The team's preparation heading into this season is also vastly improved, and after the strong development plan that they had last season, they know that they're starting with a much better platform heading into 2024. They also feel that the MCL60 had plenty of development potential that will carry over into the MCL38, and that even though the likes of Rob Marshall and David Sanchez joined too late to have an impact on the birth of the MCL38, Stella did say that they're already contributing very good ideas for McLaren's future developments in season. Speaking about McLaren's winter, Stella described it as on plan and relatively smooth, although he did then clarify that the words relatively smooth in the context of Formula 1 means pushing everything last minute to the limit, which I thought was a funny bit of insight. And now, a big talking point specifically with Zak Brown was about their driver lineup, and in particular, the speculation around the future of Lando Norris. On their lineup, Zak flat out said, "I think we have the best driver lineup in Formula 1. And whilst I personally rank them third on my list, in my video that I did about driver lineups, which I'll leave a link to in the description, he should feel like that about his drivers, and I genuinely feel like he doesn't even want to think about looking at anyone else." Or what I really like about McLaren's lineup is that even with Oscar's lack of experience, given the fact that he showed so much raw speed and potential up against Norris, and given the fact that he should just get better and better by improving his race pace, tyre management and consistency, it doesn't feel like the driver lineup is a limiting factor at McLaren. The speculation around Lando's future, however, I think is important because to me, from Austria onwards last season, Lando was every bit as good as the likes of Hamilton, Leclerc or Alonso. Having said that, the qualifying errors last season did start to add up, with Piastri actually out-qualifying him in the second half of the season. And whilst he was always able to make up for it on the Sunday, if you put him in a 2021 Lewis vs Max championship scenario where the pressure is just unimaginable every single session, you just can't be making those types of mistakes that often. Andrea Stella, being as open and honest as he is, also talked about where Lando needs to improve, and I think he summarized it very well by indicating that Lando needs to recognize where delivering 97 to 99% is actually enough, rather than delivering 100% whilst the car is on the ragged edge. And now, what we don't know and what we'll only find out as 2024 unfolds is, were Lando's mistakes mostly just down to him struggling with the pressure, or was it just a manifestation of the car being fast but difficult to drive on the limit? And how much did Piastri pushing Norris more also contribute? Having said that, these are just a few rough edges that Lando needs to smooth out to become the best version of himself. McLaren know exactly how good a driver they have on their hands, and that is exactly why this season it's so important for them to prove to Lando that this team is making progress and is getting closer to giving him a car in which he can challenge for the title. Lando's current contract runs out next season at the end of 2025, and signing him to a brand new deal was described by Zak as a high priority in 2024. Zak knows more than anyone else that clearly Horner and Marco for some reason have taken a liking to Lando even openly in the media, which they don't usually do for any driver outside of Max, and that whilst Red Bull have a car that's capable of winning 21 out of 22 races, that temptation to jump straight into a winning car will continue to be there, especially if McLaren disappoints. My biggest expectation of McLaren this season, and I don't think that this is a crazy goal for them to have, is to win a race in 2024. And sprints don't count, by the way. This team is not some small, underfunded midfield underdog. They have a brilliant driver lineup with a driver in Lando who to me is good enough to win them a championship. On an operational level, they have literally a record-breaking pit crew, and they also have the money, people, tools and infrastructure that's every bit as good as what Ferrari, Mercedes and Red Bull have. If they want to prove to Lando that this team is now on the right path and that he will win a championship with them, a Grand Prix win has to be their target. And in my opinion, there is now no more excuses as to why they shouldn't be able to achieve that. Well, there you have it. If you did enjoy this video and want to support the channel, then don't forget to subscribe. That would be massively appreciated, and I'll see you in the next one.